Hello and welcome to another episode of the Construction Corner podcast. I'm Dylan. I'm your host with, I don't know, 5, 6 inches of snow on the ground here in California in the mountains. Uh, Joined by my blue collar badass this week. We are actually, sitting down together to record this episode this week. So, Matt, how's it going, man?
Things are going good, man. I'm in my new office, so I'm not sitting in my fucking truck on AirPods, and I'm not walking down a dirty road trying to scrape a recording together. We it's actually unseasonably warm here. Like I was saying a little bit ago, it's going to be in the 60s this weekend, which is unheard of for early February. Next week we drop back down to gray and miserable, but we're taking it while it's here. So not in my preferred setup, but actually having a mic in my face and a comfortable seat is way nicer than than driving around trying to do this.
Yeah, I'm kind of in a makeshift deal today since I couldn't get down to my office and studio setup, but it is what it is.
It's just good to get it done, man. Get on the mics and Zoom's better than talking to myself, that's for sure.
Yeah, which kind of reminds me. So like last weekend, I'm in a training cycle right now for my 100 here in a month or so, and so going out and I'm running for 4 or 5 hours on Saturday and a couple hours on Sunday, where the weather's not been like perfect here recently. It's been pretty rainy actually. We've gotten, I don't know, maybe like 4 or 5 inches over the last week, which isn't crazy, but it's just dreary, gloomy. And like I go and run and try to find like a decent window of time where I'm not going to be just completely soaked in it to get some outside running and trail stuff in. And even during those like nice gaps, man, like the place that I go, nobody else shows up. Like there's a few Jeep trails and Jeep folks out or trucks, whatnot, but nobody's like just out walking around. I'm the only dude there running. Like I see people, but I'm the only it's like running or walking through these it's like kind of a recreation area that I mostly run in. But yeah,
So
it's just
do
funny.
you prefer it that way or would you rather have it busier?
Um, I don't for that place, I don't that's fine. Like I don't care either way. Whether I see people or not. Mainly it's I have service. So if I fall and like break something, then I can like call for help. Um,
Pretty important.
well, because like some of the other places that I go and run up in the pass in the summer, like, dude, there's no service. You're on a single track trail, like to get out there. The For me to get rescued, if I could get rescued, well, I mean, that's a whole separate thing. Like you're falling off a cliff, they're probably bringing in horses to like rescue. Like one of our friends works for the sheriff's department and search and rescue, and like some lady fell off a cliff and they couldn't put a helicopter up to go and get her because it's at like 9, 10,000 feet, and then she was down a ravine. But the winds were too high for the helicopter to come through and rescue her. So they had to get a like horse team to go
Wow.
and get this woman. And then because she fell off a cliff, they had to rappel like down to her, rope her up, hoist her back up this cliff basically, and then put her on a horse, with a broken leg, and then get her out of there. So, I mean, we're talking like very remote areas that I would go and run in. So for some things like having service or there being people around is like in those areas they're heavily backpacked, where
Okay.
I'd run up in the mountains. So I mean, some places that I go pretty far out isn't so bad. But usually you'd see people within, let's say, a 6 hour window, right? So even if you broke your leg, you might not see anybody immediately, but within a time window that's enough to get you, uh, you're not going to starve, let's put it that way, in that like time period to then, get brought back to civilization.
Well, that's a good thing, man. Having to get carried out and rescued by a team of horses and rappelling up and down cliff faces, that's movie level shit. That's I mean, I bet it's beautiful where you go running.
Yeah, well, and that's just it, man. There's like so many of these like unsung heroes, right? That guys just they volunteer for it, like the horse teams, like those guys for the most part aren't getting paid.
Really?
They're not for the, I don't think most of the horse guys do. They might get paid something out
Okay.
of it, but it's primarily volunteer, because it's out of like a pack station. So guys will just kind of do it, you know.
Sure.
Um, uh, there might be like one or two from the sheriff's department that'll go and that can ride and go out there and help them. But yeah, for the most part, it's like volunteer. So and this is all over like the West primarily is you have, very remote areas, people fall or whatever. And, you have these guys that just, it's their kind of job and they go out and, they have enough backcountry skills to ride
Yeah.
a horse, to carry gear, to rappel down a mountain. And, you're never going to hear anything about these guys. And, they kind of go on their merry way after the fact.
Yeah, I guess it's not so different from, we have a lot of, they're not volunteers, but we call them paid on call firefighters in our neck of the woods, and they don't make shit. Unfortunately, they should. We don't have a whole lot of horse led efforts, but we have a lot of water here, right? So we got it. There's dive teams all over the place that are very active all year round, because obviously in the summer, you get the drunk idiots falling off their boats, and then in the winter you get the drunk idiots going out on the ice when they shouldn't be. So that was one of the things when I was on the fire department many moons ago. That was one of the coolest trainings we did. We went out in like early January, colder than shit, onto a local lake, and we used K12s and chainsaws and cut a big square out of the ice and put on the not dive suits, but the dry suits, the big fluffy yellow things, and had to jump in the water. And it was wild, man. Like it was really cool to do that and to learn some of their techniques and stuff. But I don't know. I don't want to take us too far off track, but that stuff's cool to me. It's neat to see those heroes do their job.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, this really comes back to like preparing and planning, like where I run, when I run in those places, and just having a plan together. Like r- very, I do a very good job at risk mitigation, right? Like I'm not going to ride my bike in the rain because, dude, I've seen too many people wreck on a just slick corner, whatever, during races and stuff like that,
Oh
to
yeah.
where I'm not going to take that type of risk. And the same thing goes in running. Like I'll run in areas that are, in some cases they are ridiculous. Like it's way out in the middle of nowhere. It's single tracks, big mountain, type stuff. And like there's always some element of risk to it, but like I'm not going to cross, like this last spring we had so much snow melt, like I'm not going to cross the rivers at the bottom of this deal that's 3-4 miles out from a trailhead that I drove 40 minutes to then cross this thing in fast moving water with, I didn't see a single person, the parking lot's mostly empty. Like not going to happen. I'm going to turn around and figure something else out. So it's a lot of like risk mitigation, what we do on a daily basis, but just then applying it to other areas of life, like we do it in construction all the time, but then how do you apply that to the rest of life?
For sure. I mean, we've talked about before. That's really all we do, right? It's all about risk mitigation and balancing the risks, the inherent risks, with the potential rewards, and constantly doing those sets of analyses in your head, hundreds and hundreds of times a day, and thousands of times per project, because it's a it's a risky endeavor what we do financially, safety wise, liability wise. There's risk everywhere. I mean, now that we brought that up, we probably shouldn't forget to mention that horrible collapse in Idaho. I think it was last week as of time of this recording, but just brutal, man. I know we talked real briefly before we went on, but 3 people died, and I don't remember how many more were injured, but it's it's a scary thing when you start seeing that sort of stuff. But to be able to manage that, along with all the financial and all of the liability and everything else, I mean, it takes a lot of patience, it takes a lot of skill, it takes a lot of guts. And it doesn't matter what you're doing, whether you're putting up a steel structure or you're running out in the middle of God's country by yourself. I mean, you got to be able to have those conversations with yourself, right? To always analyze what the hell you're doing and what the potential is, and is this good? Yes, no. Is this a good idea? Should I proceed? Um, it's a good learning lesson for everybody. You should pay attention to that stuff. And um, again, if you haven't seen what happened in Idaho, it is pretty fucking horrible. So we preach safety a lot around here, obviously, just based on what we do. And I hate seeing that shit. We had I know we're kind of diverging on what we were going to talk about, but we had a trench collapse out in Livingston County. It's been 10 or 15 years now, but just brutal. People buried alive, and you hear and see shit like that real close to home, and man, it makes you remember very quickly really what the stakes are on what we're doing. And it's just so important that people keep that top of mind, and have those risk calculations going on, no matter what their role is, whether they're on the steel side or the GC or the designer, all of it. You got to take those into account so that nothing horrific like that happens.
Yeah, and it's as bad as it is to see this, it's the silver lining in here is a couple things. One, we don't see them that often anymore.
Pretty rare.
And then when it does, it's a big deal when like those types of collapses, and we'll find out what happened. It's still pretty fresh, and I'm sure there's a lot of investigation going on
Oh
right
my God,
now.
it's a wasp nest of OSHA investigators.
Yeah, and every park bench lawyer is out there, and ambulance chaser is probably, I'm sure, foaming at the mouth right now to
Oh,
figure out
they all want their pound of flesh, man.
what's going on. So, I don't feel for anybody involved in any of that. Um, it's going to be, the accident is bad. The aftermath is going to be worse.
Yep.
Um, the fallout from it's going to be worse, and it's going to take a long time. It's not over in a minute or however long that collapse took to happen. This is going to be something that's going to drag on for years, more than likely. But that being said, these things don't happen that often. Like it's a blue moon that we hear about a crane collapse, or some other type of structural collapse, or like the one that happened in Miami where that condo building fell that was 30 years old. Well, it's like, one, it's 30 years old. Two, they never did any maintenance on it, and then we go down the list from there. So, like in new buildings, you really don't hear that type of tragedy happening. Like we just don't hear of crane collapses. We don't hear of a lot of this. And that's, safety has come a long way. OSHA has done their job in that way. Everybody's got their own beef with OSHA in some way, shape, or form. But on the whole, right from the stats of what's happened in not just construction, but manufacturing and the whole, like lives lost are far lower than they've ever been for the amount of production that we have within, construction, manufacturing, industrial, works.
For sure, man. And I mean, it's like having your opinion on the cops, on the police, right? Nobody likes the cop when you get pulled over for, doing 10 over the speed limit. Everybody loves the cops when they stop a murder case or a murder suspect. I mean, so I've look, I'm a GC. Okay. I've had my run-ins with the OSHA forces in my day, and I've got my own thoughts about it that I should probably, for the sanctity of my company, keep my mouth shut. But the reality is what you said. I mean, overall, most of them are good people who are legitimately out there trying to keep us and our people safe. And I think overall, over the last 20 5+ years I've been doing this shit, you know, there's a market improvement on reduction of worksite injuries. And so it is now shocking when you do hear about a trench collapse or building collapse or, you know, whatever it may be. So that's a good thing. That, you know, if it wasn't shocking, that'd be a really bad place to be, right? If that was commonplace, it'd be even harder to attract people into this industry. So it is a good thing those guys and those men and women are out there, you know, doing what they do. Some of them could tone it down a little bit and I'd be fine, but
Yeah, I
well,
mean the individual enforcement is a whole different ball game, right? But on the whole, like you think of like the Empire State Building or Hoover Dam or some of these other massive projects, and how many people died constructing those. You know, it's
Hoover
incredible.
Dam, yeah, it's insane how many people perished in that. I don't know the
Yeah,
number, but I know it's a lot.
it's in the hundreds for Hoover. Granted, like Hoover, if you've ever been there, it's in the middle of the friggin' desert, right? It's a hour and a half drive outside of Vegas. Um, so I mean, when they were doing it, it was hotter than shit.
Oh yeah,
Like water and hydration levels and that stuff was not a like thing people concerned themselves with, 100 years ago, or 80, 90 years ago. And so um we have just whole different standards today around what simple things like heat exhaustion, hydration, adequate food on the job site, getting in electrolytes, like things that we kind of take for granted now as a society, and like drinking water and replenish, like that was not even a thing to consider in the time of, again, Hoover Dam, Empire State Building, and some of these other mega projects that, I mean, they're building in like, well, Hoover Dam is just, granted they do get cold there, but like New York City, like shit, you go through every season and cycle from negative to, 100 degrees.
yeah, for sure, man. Hoover
Um,
Dam, and frankly, I'm fine with our random conversation today. It's kind of fun. Isn't it true that Hoover Dam that concrete is not fully cured yet?
I could find out. That I don't know.
Okay. I've heard that. I don't know whether it is or not, but there's such a massive amount uh of concrete in that thing. I believe that it's still actually in the center, in its core, it's still curing because it's so damn thick. And somebody's gonna fact check me and point it out. And if I'm wrong, then you kiss my ass. But it
It
uh it sounds plausible.
it wouldn't shock me. Now the top half has probably, because there's no water touching it anymore, because LA's taken it all. But the well, so like that's one thing most people don't know. So all the water behind Hoover Dam does not go to Vegas; it goes to Los Angeles. So like they own the water. So in the West, you have all these water rights and
Yep.
who owns water and stuff, which I've covered here a ton. But yeah, like LA owns all that water. So when all the LAites and Californians bitch about the water level being low behind Hoover Dam, well, they're responsible for it. So yeah, but
Yeah,
that would
yeah.
shock me.
Those LA folks, there's something else too.
I'm gonna potentially have a project out in Malibu, which I'll talk about if we do get it. But so I'll have to end up dealing with a lot of those folks. But it'll be a really cool project, um, if we do get that one.
Yeah, yeah. You confidentially flew me in, and I will say is that would be a very cool project. So I'm hoping for your sake and for the sake of the show that you do get it because it'll be a fun one to rip apart here.
Yeah. Which, I mean, it kind of segues into the topic for today is, downtime, right? So a lot of my efforts now are being both, I kind of have like that foot in two worlds of software and improvement products, which is going to feed into the engineering firm, which helps us do projects so we could do them faster, which, then cycles back into improving the software product. But for like just a pure engineering standpoint, we have in construction in general, right, in the boom bust cycles that we're all very familiar and accustomed to, you have periods of hyper productivity. And this will even happen in a project. And I did some content around this too, where in the beginning of a project, everybody's, gung ho and getting after it and setting up, whether it's on the engineering side, design side, or on the construction side. And then the middle of the project, it's kind of like, we're here again today, and productivity kind of flatlines, if you will, like during that middle phase of the project, everyone's, clocking in, clocking out, stuff's getting done. And, we just kind of motor along. And then the last, call it 2, 3 weeks of a project, when that deadline's really close, productivity is like 400% of what it was, the weeks before. Everybody's trying to push that project out. And you're like, where was this, guys? And then, everybody after it just kind of collapses and is like, okay, all right, we're done now. So um, the thing that I wanted to cover more so than anything was like, what do you do in those downtimes? Because I see and have, experienced it in my own life, and this kind of even ties into like 75 hard and the break between phase one and phase two is, what do you do in those downtimes, right? Like you just want to be done and like collapse after, especially the big pushes to get the project out the door. But at the same time, like there's always stuff to do. And how do you kind of maintain some level of productivity? You're not going to be what you were prior, because it is not sustainable to do that. But I think that's something that every single person, whether in their own lives and they go through those spurts and cycles, or, and especially within construction projects and going through the spurts and cycles.
Without a doubt. And to real quick touch back on the emotional cycle of projects, that's why you need to have really good project managers, because a really good project manager doesn't tend to get afflicted by that lack of interest or that fatigue that goes in the middle. Like, that's why I suck at being a project manager. That's why I hire really great ones, because I'm like, on the front side, I'm go, go, go. I'm excited. I want to get it. And I'm fighting to win and swinging for the fences and all that good stuff. And I'm engaged and running. But man, once we lock and load, it's like, all right, you guys take this now. And like, I just know it's going on. I know it's still continuing to churn, and it's a great place to be now. When I used to be doing, wearing every hat here by myself, it's the struggle is real, man. Like, I would lose interest very quickly into a project. Like, fuck, it's just not my cup of tea, and it's everybody's different what they want to focus on. But so anyways, shout out to my PMs, because my PMs and my superintendents keep that ship rolling after my ADD head gets out of it and goes on to chase other shiny objects. But back to your point about dealing with downtime, it really is a discipline thing, right? It's a mental toughness thing. So it ties really perfectly well with Live Hard, like you mentioned, in that you have to develop that grit. You have to develop that fortitude, so that, because it's really easy when nothing is pressing, when deadlines aren't looming on the horizon as tight as they might be in your quote unquote busy season. It'd be really easy to sit your ass down on the couch and do nothing, or waste away your day at work, hiding behind your monitor watching YouTube videos, or playing video poker, or whatever the hell you do when you're wasting time. And it's the people with that mental toughness who've developed that grit, who have the discipline then to say, okay, now's the time to better myself, or now's the time to better our systems or our processes, or whatever it may be. Like, there ain't no company that's perfect, right? So there's always things that we could focus on. And I know for me, like I said, I'm very shiny object driven, and I get distracted. And it's when I'm in those busy cycles, when I'm running, a million miles an hour, that I'm like, damn it, it'd be really nice to take some time and sit down and, revamp this template or this form, or create this sort of process here. And then it's fleeting thought, gone. And then, we don't, truth be told, we don't really get downtime like we used to anymore, just by virtue of how we run the ship here. But to have those times to do that, and then to actually grab onto those things, are super valuable to a company and to personal development, right? Like, there's a lot of opportunity lost when you don't capitalize on those opportunities to stay productive, but in a different way than you're used to being productive, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, it's something that I've in every firm that I've worked in, and I mean, not so much in my own doings and own business ventures because I'm just that type of guy that I can't sit idle for too long. But in the companies that I've been a part of, like whenever projects weren't going on, like we really didn't have that many initiatives or guys weren't really pushing it. And even when we did have some of the initiatives, it never felt like they really wanted it to go through. You know, a lot of the strategic planning and that type of stuff, like, yeah, it got done, but then nothing ever happened after, right? And it wasn't, we're going to follow and knock down these goals and milestones that we set for ourselves. You know, there was no follow through in it. And I think a lot of firms, and especially being now where I see a lot of firms and kind of have a better understanding, like behind the scenes for them, and you know, being in software and seeing their systems and processes and talking to more and more folks is, man, they really don't think about like this R&D side of things. You know, they really don't think about reinvesting in their systems and having somebody dedicated to just process improvement. And if you look at like the biggest firms in the world, right? Every Fortune 500 that you can see every single not line item, but you can at least see their financials where they invest stuff. Um, and they put a lot of money towards R&D, man. Like they have full departments of people in them. A lot of the guys that I went to school with work in those R&D departments to create new products, to bring new things to life, to do improvements on like bulldozers or a lot of the GPS tracking that is now on bulldozers. You know, that was all done because of R&D, like within to make those things follow a grading pattern, right, from a CAD file. So you have like these massive improvements in productivity, technology, you know, process, and then that translates right to the field. You know, that same bulldozer can be manually operated, or it can go through a GPS grading file for a company that's sophisticated enough to use that type of technology. But again, all that was created in, you know, well, really somebody's full-time gig of being R&D, but in, you know, the firms like downtime, they're, I mean, they've gotten big enough, right? Those big companies to be dedicated to that type of stuff. But
Right.
for most other companies, like, man, every man, woman, and child on that firm has to be rowing the boat in the right direction. You're not big enough to where, you know, even having one person, you know, at 100 grand or whatever they're going to get paid to be R&D, like that's a big investment in the firm to purely do that type of stuff. But that's almost what it takes, because then you're looking 3 5 years ahead, and that's what it takes to get ahead, is having somebody dedicated for 2,000 hours a year to think about all this stuff versus, like you're saying, a fleeting thought that, you know, never gets implemented.
Well, and it takes a really good and strong leader too to get his head out of those trees and see up over top of the forest to recognize that those investments in that sort of human capital will pay off tenfold, if not more, down the road. But it's really hard, especially as a small company, to slot 100 grand, like you said, for a role like that. It's not an immediately productive role. There's not an immediate return on that investment. But again, if you can peak up above, it'll have massive paybacks.
And
Um,
even for the small company, it's small like slices of time investment, right? A Friday afternoon or Wednesday morning, or you know, some type of time investment, whether that's you personally running the show, or you know, you have a group of individuals that meet for a few hours to knock stuff out, whatever that might be. There's ways to do this without, you know, dedicated staff for it.
for sure, for sure. And I was thinking about when you were talking a minute ago, our our sales cycles are impossibly long, right? We've talked about that in the show before, in construction in general, but in design build, in true design build, like we do it specifically, our sales cycles are insane. You know, a lot of people in other industries can't understand that sort of time commitment. We could be a year to 18 months, you know, from the day we meet someone to the time that we might be putting boots on the ground. And for the office side, you know, for our pre-con department, who's heavily involved during that cycle, it can be excruciatingly long if you're not used to it, you know. And we just went through this. You know, we had an interesting year last year. A lot of stuff got pushed back because of municipal bullshit and permitting issues. We had some big wins come in this week, the week of this recording, which is nice to finally be able to show our people, right? Like you're doing this for a reason. Now you can breathe a second. Like you don't have long, but here's the big win. You know, we don't have a bell here because place I used to work, a couple of us used to work there, had a bell, and it was really annoying and obnoxious. But you know, when you get the wins, you hang that shit on the wall and you celebrate it. And now it's time. Like now we can breathe a minute. Let's take those minutes, and rather than, you know, stuff donuts in our face and get shit faced, and you can do that for a second, right? You can follow the 24 hours to celebrate rule, okay? But after that, let's take this downtime now and let's figure out how to capitalize on it, because we have this gift of some time, which is very, very hard to find. So, you know, in listening to you and kind of talking through this, I'm just racking my brain like, okay, how are we going to capitalize on this gift of time that we've been given? Because that is the most precious gift you could ever find, right? Those minutes or those hours, if you can scrounge together enough of the minutes, I mean, that's worth its weight in gold. So do you squander it and do nothing, or do we plan something out and start structuring a way to really keep the momentum going, right? That's really what it's all about, is the momentum. And if you stop and you lose it, it's really hard to get it started again. If you keep it rolling, it's much more conducive to an overall successful venture, because there's a lot you can do just by harnessing the power of that momentum that you've created over the last, call it 18 months. Kind of like Live Hard, right? If you finish Live Hard and then you go sit on your ass and do nothing but drink and eat pizza, you lose it, man. You lose it fast. You fall very far off track. But if you keep it going, you can keep that momentum and you can really feed off of that energy, and it really becomes a wonderful thing.
Yeah. And man, my advice like differs depending on who I'm talking to, because there's some guys that I know and talk to on a regular basis where, man, you got to like force them to take some vacation and some time, you know? And so when those opportunities present themselves, I'm like, man, take an extra night, like go have a good dinner, you know, like enjoy that type of stuff. You know, if you're going to go run a race, like one of this guy in particular, he's going to come and run a race with me up in Tahoe, and he's going to make a week out of it. Because one, he can. Two, he's had other races where he didn't spend any time either before or after, and he was completely wrecked. Then he ended up getting sick, and he was forced to take 2 days to, you know, recover,
Yeah.
and was miserable on it. And so with guys like that, I'm like, hey man, like you need to take some time. You've got to like, it's, you know, again, you're running this race, you traveled there, like take the extra night, man. Like enjoy the day, spend it in like a nice hotel. You make enough money to like the extra couple $100 for a hotel room that you're only going to do 5 times a year is not going to break you. You know, like you're doing well enough, you're crushing it in work, you know, you're beating all of your work goals, you know, like you can afford to do this. And then for other guys, you know, I don't have too many of these people in my life, but you know, for other guys, you got to give a swift kick in the ass to like, hey man, no, you are not allowed to take a break, you know.
Yeah, man. I mean, that's the reality of it. It's a interesting dichotomy, right? It's a mindset thing. There are guys like I'll put myself in that ring. I love what I do. I truly love what I'm doing. And so for me, working is just it's an outlet, right? Like if I wasn't like we've talked about before, when we take beach vacations, my family and I like I'm a I'm an asshole, man. I make it like 2 days doing the beach thing and I'm stir crazy. I lose my patience. I can't just sit still. But I know it's important to take breaks. But then you also have the flip side and you have the guys, you're like, what? You've taken like 6 weeks of vacation this year. Well, how the fuck are you taking another day off? Like, when do you do anything? When do you get anything done? And I don't know. It's to each his own. I mean, there's different philosophies in that, I'm sure, but it always is funny to me, to kind of put those two side by side because it's gross. Maybe it's unhealthy, but I'd rather work than do most anything. Like, yes, I spend time with my family and I want to do all that stuff, and we do, but I like what I'm doing. I like the thrill I get out of doing it. So it's almost more of a Pavlov's dog thing, right? Like I want the work. I want this rush. I don't want to sit and just let life happen to me, I guess is maybe a better way to put it.
Yeah, well, and for guys like us, and what I found more beneficial in my own life is not the week-long vacations. Like I've done all that, gone to Hawaii, like it's great, but like even during that, like shit, man, every day, like I'm biking 50 miles, I'm swimming 2, 3 miles, I'm running, 10 miles. Like I'm doing, some version of a triathlon pretty much every day when I'm on like those types of vacations, like it's insane when I do that type of stuff. Like I'm very active when we go and do that. Like it's activity filled and we're going and doing that type of stuff. But for the most part, like a Friday to Sunday, Monday is, or Thursday to Tuesday is my kind of jam, like leave out on Thursday night, get to wherever you're going, be there Friday, Saturday, travel back either, Sunday morning or Sunday night. Yeah. And that's it. You fill it full and you're moving and you go. And things like that are even just like a easy Saturday night or an easy Friday night at home, 3, 4 hours, half a day type of thing is for most of us, that's all you need in all reality. You don't need a week. And then on like, that's what I found to be most helpful for me is like just those little half days of, or a couple hours here or there to go do something and break the monotony of whatever you're going through, or to celebrate a win, you go to a nice dinner, something like that. And then on the like, because again, most of what we do, like you need to be there like day in and day out. There's just a volume of work to do. You're not trying to like crack one specific problem to like physics, right? Like that's not what you're trying to crack. And I bring that up because my neighbor growing up in Oregon used to work for Lawrence Livermore National Lab, which does like all the laser stuff. And they'd go like basically fishing, but he'd take his family, they'd go on a tuna boat and would be gone for 3 months out of the year. Um,
Wow.
but again, like that guy, he's trying to solve like one unique problem, right? It's not something like showing up to work day in and day out is not, in some cases, it might get things done, but a lot of that work is internal to like solve one particular math problem, right? Or some new profound discovery. So for work like that, it's a little different. Like Einstein, shit, that dude didn't do, I mean, he did stuff, but after he was 35, like nothing profound really came out of Einstein. He did most all like his big discoveries were from like 26 to 32. So when you look at his life, most all of it, and he lived to be like 70, 80, but most everything that he did was, when he was 28 to 35. So it's, but again, it's to solve one unique problem, right? One crack of the shell, and that, everybody knows E equals MC squared. So he solved one very unique thing, but that's not our type of work, right? We're not trying to come up with one big breakthrough that we can live on for the rest of our lives. Like the guy that cracked gene sequencing, he has two massive yachts, and the guy can live on that forever because he owns the patents around gene sequencing.
Yeah, I don't think we'll be buying yachts on one creation that we or one building that we put together or one proposal we put together, but we could do that on lots of them.
But that's just it, right? Is that in the construction world, you got to show up day in and day out, day in and day out, day in and day out. And that's what it is, man. Like you can't afford to take these massive breaks in what you're doing. So in those like downtimes, right? Whether it's a day, a week, a month, right? When you're waiting for projects to land, you've got to find ways for not only yourself but your whole team to still be productive, to find out better ways to do things, to figure out different marketing, to be out marketing, whatever that is, until that next project comes through. And I think for a lot of firms, they just do nothing and wait.
It's a shitty place to be, right? I mean that's I don't know. I could say a lot. That's weak mentality to me. We're in a market in an industry where, you gotta be the hunter, gotta be ready to kill all the time. And you can take breaks, you can get recharged, but you still gotta be on point and you gotta be ready to go and chase something down when you have to. So I don't know. It's also a good thing that they're firms that operate in the opposite way, because that allows firms like yours and mine to do what we do and to get the wins stacked up that we do.
And it's the majority of them, man. Like no R&D department, no forward thinking, no, I mean, it's reactionary based stuff. RFP comes out, we go after every single one of them. We don't, oh, it's in our market, supposedly, we're going to go after it, pose on it, put the resources into this so that we can look busy. Um, it, there's just a lot of that stuff where not taking that step back, not like strategically thinking about who we go after, how we go after them, how do we get in front of these people before an RFP ever appears, and doing all that type of stuff. So, and again, because of the markets that we serve, you've got to keep moving. You can't stop.
I got nothing left on that one, man. I'm with you. You can't stop. Time to get back to work.
And with that, guys, Matt, it's been good to be back on the mics together and to do this. I know that both of us are crazy busy in this time of year and finding things to do, or not finding, but we have shit to do. So yeah, man, good to be here.
Yeah, man. Likewise. It's always good to get back on and guys, this is gonna be a big year for the show. So keep tuning in, keep checking out our YouTube channel. We've got some big guests lining up. It's well known that I'm in the holdup here on on better produced shows lately because of my lack of a studio anymore. But within probably a month or so, that'll be taken care of, and we'll be back to firing on all cylinders. And there's some exciting shit coming down the pipe. So we appreciate everybody's support. Keep sharing the show, and we'll keep showing up here on Tuesdays.
Yes, we will. And with that, guys, that's going to be this episode of the Construction Corner podcast. Until next time.